So welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us for our webinar today. This is a webinar on workplace soft skills by Peregrine Global Services. A big welcome to everybody who it's morning for you if you're in the US. For those of us in Europe, I'm here in Paris, so we wish you a good afternoon. And for people in Asia, a good evening. So thank you for joining us for today's webinar. So let's start with some quick introductions. Here you see me on the video, but my name is Paul Millette. I'm Director of European, Middle East, and Asian Operations for Peregrine Global Services. I'm located, as I mentioned, here in Paris. I've been living here for about 30 years. Prior to that, I was in the United States, where I was working at Clark University, where I was Director of Admissions and Financial Aid for the Graduate School of Management there. Moving over to France, I started my teaching career in human resource management and organizational behavior, and then moved into accreditation services about 15 years ago. And for the last 4 years, have been working with Peregrine. So again, welcome. I'll turn it over to Christine for her to introduce herself.
Thanks, Paul. And my name is Christina Perry, and I am the Portfolio Manager at Peregrine Global. I am tasked with the development of new online services to aid in evaluation of key learning outcomes and also development of student competencies to help them as they enter the professional world after graduation.
Great, thanks, Christina. So to get this webinar underway, I have a few housekeeping activities here. Ways to participate. We do like to keep this interactive as much as possible. So we will have a few poll questions that when they come up, we'll ask you to give your responses. You can type those into the chat bar and we'll make those available. We do have time for comments or questions. You'll notice the question bar where you can ask questions, and we'll address those as they come up. And if we have some time at the end, question period. And we try to keep this running as smoothly as possible. So if you can mute your microphone, so that will allow us to move ahead without too much background noise. So first, let's take a look at what we're going to be talking about today, and really is the challenge that we all face as educators and those in higher education with the issue of soft skills. Over the last 10 years, there's been, or even more, many years, a lot of research has come out and media outlets have really explained the problem, which is a skills gap found in the workforce. Often referred to as the soft skills gap. These are the personal qualities that we all know are necessary for workplace effectiveness and efficiency. They include, as we all know, things like adaptability, communications, and creative thinking. So over the years, employers and higher education institutions have found it very difficult to define soft skills, or so-called soft skills, evaluating them and developing these skills. So in our presentation today, we're really going to address these issues of defining, evaluating, and developing soft skills. But we really want to, take a look at some of what we know, and that is not news to people in attendance today, is that executives overwhelmingly consider soft skills to be equally important to what we call technical or hard skills. Of course, HR managers find, a larger percentage of them find that without soft skills, there's a real lack of leadership skills in a company, and really affects productivity. And I found an interesting research study that took place in Bangalore, India, where they found that by training soft skills, they were able to, training for soft skills, they were able to increase the return on investment by 250%, which I think illustrates pretty clearly the importance of the return on investments to well-trained staff in terms of these soft skills. Human resource managers confronted with the daily problems of new graduates coming into the workforce without the soft skills that they really should be having. This list includes many common ones that we see even in our own organization sometimes: problem solving, communication, critical skills. Now, I think it's a misnomer to say it's just new graduates. I think you can have seasoned people who sometimes lack some of these skills through no fault of their own, just because they've moved through organizations. So it's important to keep in mind that there is always a way to improve these skills among even new employees and seasoned people in the organization. Again, leaders are saying clearly that soft skills lead to long-term job success. And this research shows that overwhelmingly more than technical knowledge.
Paul, that's funny. I was just on a webinar about soft skills, and one of the sayings that I heard from a professor was that knowledge will get you hired, but it's behavior that will get you fired.
Yeah, and I think we've all experienced that. Hopefully not directly, but within the organizations throughout our careers to see that happen. So hopefully, what we'll be able to discuss today will help improve that, so that we'll keep people employed longer than shorter periods. And of course, in tertiary and in business industry, we see these skills needed as well. Hard industries, leadership, management, and communications, another research that has come up. And again, most employers see these types of skills: problem solving, communication. This was a research survey conducted by NACE, which is the National Association of College and Employers. Our American audience might be more familiar with this. In Europe and Asia, this is an organization that helps coordinate some of the main competencies that universities and colleges should be addressing because of the needs within the industry and work in general. So let's take a look at our first poll, which is: what are we doing as business schools, or are you doing? I say we because I've been very much a part of business schools throughout my history. So what are business schools doing? And the first question is quite simple. Do you teach, and I put / develop students' workplace soft skills as part of your academic program? So this is really just a question of yes or no. Are you doing something with regards to soft skills? And you can identify soft skills in your head any way you'd like. Just fill in, I guess the best way would be to just fill in the, it seems like maybe we can bring up this poll.
Yeah, I went ahead and launched the poll for everybody,
Okay.
so that you can just go ahead and vote yes or no. Do you teach or develop students' workplace soft skills as part of your academic program? We'll just give people a minute. It looks like we've got about half the people have voted so far, so we'll wait another minute. Just a few more seconds here. Overwhelmingly, yes. So I'll share these responses with you in just a moment. I was waiting for a few more to come in, but let's go ahead and close it, and I'll share these results with you. So as you can see here, Paul, 89% of our audience does teach and develop workplace soft skills as part of their academic program.
Great. I'm not sure the audience can see that, but we can see it on our side. So yes, 89%. Which is great. I mean, this is not to discredit anyone who's not doing it, but that's an important thing to keep in mind, and you're probably doing it in other areas that you might not be aware of. Let me bring up the next poll, which make sure that there we go. So here is a more specific question about standalone modules or courses which are designed to measure workplace soft skills. So this question is, do you have specifically designed courses or modules to teach and develop soft skills? So an example here is you may have marketing classes or communication classes integrated into that. You consider what you're doing is training students in communications or presentation skills. But this question asks, do you have a specific course in teamwork or negotiations or adaptability or creativity or cross-functional awareness or global awareness? Some of these what we call soft skills. So the question is, do you have maybe not all of the soft skills covered, but some that are in fact individual, standalone, specifically designed workplace soft skill modules for teaching and developing these skills. Some schools do, some schools don't. Well, we're just curious
Yeah.
to see what the numbers are. We see some of these coming in. We've got almost over 50% voting, which is great.
Yeah, interesting with this one. The yeses had a late surge. We started off primarily no, people did not, but then as more people voted, they do. So let's go ahead and close that and share the results. So it looks like 57% of you do have some sort of specific teaching for soft skills, and 43% do not.
Yeah. The reason that we add these polls in is obviously to get a little flavor of what's happening out there. So it does seem that our audience, there's certainly awareness of the importance of this, and that schools are mixing and matching how they're addressing it. And there are institutions that have fully developed departments of soft skills training, and others integrate that into other areas within the institution. So I'm sure you're aware there is a lot of different methods for developing soft skills, and I have a list here, and this is not an exhaustive list, far from it, and it lists some of the things that come up frequently of how institutions are developing soft skills within their academic programs. Clearly, experiential learning or action learning activities, these can be include business games, simulation exercises. These are often the case within business schools, business games, partnering with companies. A lot of institutions do have partnerships in which students are doing internships or short in-company visits. Here in Europe, this is a requirement, at least in most business schools in France. Students are required in order to complete their diploma. In business schools in particular, on the undergraduate and graduate level, they're required to do either 6 or 3 month internships. I know that's the case in many Asian countries. Obviously, there's cross transversal projects between different schools. So if you have an engineering, a multimedia school, and business school, sometimes having activities in which you bring students from different schools or departments within an institution. That's often the case to help develop those skills. Obviously, student associations, government, volunteer organizations, this is a very important component to developing those soft skills, particularly in the US market. Schools have startups and student startups and incubators, as well as consulting activities for small business. I know that that's common in the States. Small Business Development Center links with many business schools where students, particularly on the master's level, will be doing consulting projects with actual businesses. So something I did when I did my MBA, which was very enriching and developed a lot of skills then in that regard. So then we move on to, we have the notion of, obviously developing them, but we have to look at the notion of assessing them, because this is part of the continuous cycle of improvement for our institutions, for institutions of higher education, is to make sure that we're continuing to improve through assessment. So why do we assess these? And again, this comes down to many institutions to respond to the learning outcomes requirements for your programmatic and institutional accreditation. So the regional accreditors and international accreditors will have some type of requirement, usually for assessing your soft skills and technical skills as well, obviously to help satisfy the employer expectations. And again, the NACE or NACE competencies, career-ready competencies are included there, as well as providing students with some type of action plan feedback so that they can continue to develop those skills. So this isn't not an exhaustive list, but again, where we see the reasons for assessing these soft skills. Now, that being said, they're not easy to assess. This is, again, one of the challenges for workplace soft skills is really the notion of how can I do it and do it in a way that's going to provide me with the feedback I need to make the changes in my program accurately. Good data will provide me good decision making, bad data provides me with bad decision making. So here, again, see, these are just a list of some of the things that make it difficult. They're often difficult to identify. As you can see, the problem of subjectivity and bias come through very quickly because we're measuring behaviors, and behaviors are always something that we cannot fully remove bias and subjectivity when evaluating that. We can come up with tools to mitigate that, but those are some of the problems. Also, the term soft skills really is a misnomer. It's really competencies. We use the word soft skills, which has become part of our lexicon these days. Now, when we're talking about it, we use workplace soft skills or workplace competencies within our organization and as we reach out to institutions that we partner with. So these are some of the reasons that we find it difficult, and we need to come up with ways to mitigate those difficulties so that we can have a better objectivity and an assessment of these skills. So again, when we're measuring soft skills, we can demonstrate learning outcomes that are being met or not met. And again, this is important in order to continually improve our academic programs, and that is the whole purpose of accreditation, is improving the outcomes within our institution. Again, strengthening the workforce and developing those competencies to help students keep their job, and as Christina said, maybe not lose them, because this is high on the list of reasons why students, or not students, but people have a hard time keeping jobs, often relate to what we sometimes call the HR side of environments in work, meaning soft skills. And also the measuring soft skills enable us to really determine the areas for improvement. So if we find that our cohorts are lacking one or more soft skills, it gives us an opportunity to go back into our programs and make changes in order to see if we can improve the areas where we might be finding some weaknesses. So I have another poll, and here my poll 3 is on assessment. So when we look at assessments, my question here is, does your institution individually assess soft skills that students are expected to develop during their program of study? So as I said, normally we have a set of learning outcomes that are split between core business or business skills and technical skills, and some addressing soft skills. So my question here is, are you assessing these soft skills? And so you have 4 choices: separate assessments for soft skills, assess as part of other learning modules, a combination of both, or you're not currently assessing these. So
Paul, I'm going to have to apologize. I think that poll disappeared when I closed out the second one. So I think we might just have to discuss this when I closed out the second of...
No, I think I just brought it up.
Oh.
Let's see. You should be able to answer it. On my side, it came up. No?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay, well, that's all right. So this is technology. We're going to see if you can just, say, consider 1, 2, 3, 4, separate, assess as part of others, combination of both, or you don't currently assess, and then you can.
Here it is.
Oh, there you go.
Now it came up. Okay.
Yeah,
well,
there you go. So I just had to click an extra button.
Okay.
So
this is called adaptability.
Yes.
We're demonstrating dealing with ambiguity.
We need to tell our boss, here we go, we're adapting there. So it looks like people are responding. I appreciate you being patient with us on the poll side of the world here. We're almost. I like to see us reach 50% of the audience responding. So come on, we'll have a few more responses before we close the we close the poll and share our results. All right, I think. What do you think, Christina? Should I be able to close this now? Our responses.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see how this one turns out, because I think that often, courses might assess some of these soft skills, but programs as a whole,
Program as a whole,
perhaps not.
yeah. And that is one of the things that when we're looking at accreditation, there are questions that come up. Are you looking at these things that you've been writing in your learning outcomes as something you're delivering to students, which is the expectation is measurement. And that's a challenge because sometimes it's embedded, sometimes it's separate. Looks like we're pretty good for the number of voted. What do you think? Yeah. Okay, so why don't we, looks like we've got enough people who feel like they wanted to vote, so we'll close the voting and come up with that. So this doesn't surprise me. Having done this poll in a number of different forums, I have 0% for separate assessment for soft skills, but 25-25 for part of learning modules or a combination of both, and then 50% that you're not currently assessing soft skills. So, again, this is not a surprise. I have done this poll a number of times. I have come up with some places where we're seeing separate assessments of soft skills. As I mentioned, I work with a number of institutions here in France that actually have a separate department on soft skills that seems to be part of also the national requirements there. So there might be some impact from that. So let's move on to the next part, and that actually kind of addresses sort of the educational component. And as I mentioned, we work very closely with accreditation agencies. This is some of the groups that we work very closely. There are, of course, others. And the focus in accreditation is, again, continuous improvement. And how do you continually improve is to continually evaluate what you're doing and how you're doing it, and find ways to improve, mitigate your weaknesses, improve on what you're doing. And that usually means with some data that you've collected somewhere in order to go back into your academic programs, make the changes that are necessary to see if, in fact, you can improve on what you're doing, and as I said, improve any weaknesses. And that usually takes a couple of academic cycles to see if the changes you're making in your academic programs are affecting a positive change in the results of any types of assessments you might be doing. So if you're assessing hard skills or technical skills, many of you know Peregrine offers a wide range of end of program, pre, mid, and post testing for assessing technical skills in business, and a wide range of disciplines, including criminal justice and healthcare management, as well as business. So we have a lot of technical skills in Peregrine in managing and assessing these technical skills, but also we're looking now at the way of helping institutions meet this accreditation requirement on assessing and developing soft skills. So I'm going to turn the presentation over to my illustrious colleague, Christina, who will introduce you to what I think is a very exciting tool that Peregrine is introducing to help institutions with this challenge of measuring and developing soft skills. So I'll leave it over to Christina. You're on mute, I think,
Thank
Christina.
you, Paul. I was trying to be quiet and respectful there. Thank you for giving us that good background on the importance and the need for evaluating soft skills. The next part of the presentation is really going to talk about a new service and solution that Peregrine has provided to identify and measure those soft skills, note deficiencies, and make improvement. Now, Paul, do you want me to go ahead and take control, or do you want to give me the mouse?
Yeah, let's see.
I
There
can
you
make
go.
myself presenter and
No,
or
now you have control, dear. I
okay.
think. There you go.
Okay, great. Well, a bit of history for those of you who may not be as familiar with Peregrine. Before launching itself into the world of academic assessment, it began as Peregrine Leadership Institute, providing in-person workshops and one-on-one coaching and mentoring to develop new leaders. And that was in industry. So part of the leadership programs was developing self-awareness through 360-degree evaluations. And over the years, we discerned a need in higher education for this soft skill assessment. So we adapted the concept of our 360-degree evaluation used in industry to provide students with valuable feedback on their interpersonal skills. Okay. We have this new solution called EvaluSkills. And EvaluSkills is a 360-degree evaluation process which is done online. And in this case, the participants who are seeking feedback, they could be students or they could be, this could be faculty or staff for that matter. But here we're looking in the context of gathering student learning outcomes. So the students that are participants would request feedback from a variety of people at different organizational levels. So this could be professors, academic advisors. If they do a joint project with other students, perhaps the students they worked with, if they have experiences in the workplace or they've done internships, those supervisors and colleagues could give feedback. But the idea is that they will get an objective measure of their competency level in each of the soft skills that you select as relating to your learning outcomes. Before I launch into a description of how the service works technically, I want to go through a couple of definitions. The way we've set this up, the assessment items are the list of soft skills you can choose from that might match up with your learning outcomes. So Paul mentioned the NACE competencies, the National Association of Colleges and Employers, and they've identified communication skills, leadership, um, uh, let's see, what were some of the other ones? The conflict management and teamwork and things like that. So if any of those relate to your learning outcomes and you want to measure them, those are the skills you would select as assessment items. And we have some instrument templates already made up of 8 to 12, for example, soft skills assessment items that you could use as a template, or you could create your own. Then once you like that template and you add your participants to it and give it a due date, then we call it an assessment, and that cycle of assessment begins. The participants are the people who are looking for feedback on their performance, and the evaluators are the team of people that have been chosen to evaluate and give that well-rounded feedback to the person. And then there are reports available both for the individual participant and for the group as a whole, if you're an academic administrator looking to see where the strengths and weaknesses in your program might lie. So let's just go over a little bit about the service itself. This is an online 360-degree service, and one of the benefits is it's very flexible and customizable. There is not just one set of soft skills that you can measure. You can really match these to your learning outcomes. We have over 200 soft skills available as assessment items, and each of those skills has its own definition. It has statements for different levels of behavior, 1 through 5, and then some sample behaviors that would go along with that. And that gives the evaluators a greater sense of what you mean by competent or exceeds expectations or exceptional. And there's also the possibility that if there's something in there that you want to assess in your program, but you don't see it in our menu of items, you could create your own assessment item and add your own rubric and definition so that you could add that to your assessment. Okay. What does pizza have to do with soft skills? Well, I like to use this analogy when we're creating our instrument and launching an assessment. We have templates available, much like if you go to a pizzeria, there might be pizzas on the menu. Those are some best sellers. So those are ones people generally like. But if there's something on there, that you don't really like, you want to make some substitutions, or you want to create your own, you can add your own ingredients to the pizza. In this case, you could choose your own assessment items and create an instrument template that fits your learning outcome needs. So that's what I mean by instrument creation here. Okay, so as we say, we have an administrative website. On that website, the administrator can go and browse the available templates that are there, and they can make a copy, make some substitutions, or create their own from scratch, and then launch the assessment. Oop, I'm going too fast. Sorry. I'm not sure about these controls. Paul, could you advance the slide for me, please?
Sure.
I'm sorry, I'm having issues.
There you go.
Okay, and one more.
There you go.
Thank you. Okay. Once you've created your instrument, you've got it just the way you like it with all the assessment items that you need. We have an ability to download that as a PDF so that you can read through and see how they complement each other. Maybe share that with your colleagues. Do you think this encompasses our learning outcomes? Or if a participant or evaluator wants to see what they're being evaluated on, they can go ahead and download that instrument report and see each assessment item, how it's defined, and what behaviors are associated with excellent performance, competent performance, unsatisfactory performance. So that can also help them with planning their development.
I think you should be able to do it now. I think there was just a,
Okay.
you can try.
Sorry, it just with my screens here, it's not showing me where to click. I'm not getting the little arrows.
There you go. I'll try it for
Okay,
you.
great.
We'll work we'll work in tandem here.
Yes, thank you very much. I'll just have a pause and then let you
Yeah.
advance them. Okay, so we were talking about objectivity, and this is one of the difficulties in assessing soft skills is the lack of definition. And what Paul might think is excellent in oral communication, I might think is, marginal. So in this case, here we have an example of critical thinking and problem solving skills. And then we have our ratings from 5 down to 1, and it gives examples. So for the exceptional person, they're naturally creative. They can work backwards and imagine steps that will lead to the desired result. And these give the evaluator some solid criteria for measuring, okay, what is my experience with this participant? What is their performance actually like? So it is more objective that way. And then also, in addition to giving their 1 through 5 ranking, the evaluator can give feedback, written feedback. It'll be anonymous. The participant won't know who gave what feedback. They'll just collect it as a list from all their evaluators. But that really provides them useful clues to why they excel in certain things or where they might have disappointed someone in others. And if they can take that and build, they're well on their way to developing their professional skills. I did mention the administrative website. So if you decide to adopt EvaluSkills as part of your academic assessment, the authorized administrator from your school can manage the process. They can go in and add participants. They could add evaluators for people. They can monitor the progress to see how it's going. So that is nice, a nice way to manage the process and also generate the reports once it's done. As for the evaluators, there are a couple of options here. Um, a lot of times you'll probably just have the participants select their own evaluators. You'll give them a minimum number. You'll say, we want you to select at least 5 external evaluators to give you feedback. Or this might be something where you assign evaluators, particularly if you have mentors that are overseeing projects, for example. You have someone that's leading the capstone projects and you want them to be an evaluator. Perhaps you want their advisor to be an evaluator. You can go in and name them for the participant, or it could use a combination of both. The participant will choose a few, and then the administrator will also choose evaluators. So once the administrator has gone through the assessment cycle with a group of participants, they can track these results over time. This graphic that I'm showing right now shows progress at 2 different points in time. This could also be 2 separate cohorts if you wanted to see how well each group is performing against the others. Not all programs will have the same importance placed on certain soft skills. For example, creativity and innovation might be stronger in a marketing program, and attention to detail might be a greater focus in your accounting program. But here you could compare groups against each other, or you could compare performance, for example, incoming MBA students against those that have graduated and have done some internships to see if they have built upon their initial performance. Okay, now we will get into what it looks like from the participant side and from the evaluator side. And Paul pointed out to me yesterday that the participant role, we're giving the participants some homework here. They have some skin in the game and they need to do some things. They're not just sitting back and waiting for the assessment. They have to go in and log into the platform. We ask them to upload their profile picture so that evaluators will see who they're evaluating when they get that request. They enter their evaluators, thinking critically to choose a variety of people at different levels, people who they report to, but also maybe people who have worked for them in the past or have worked with them on a project. The participant will be asked to complete a self-evaluation. So the scores that they give themselves are very interesting. They're not averaged into their rating, but they are used for comparisons to detect potential blind spots. The participant can also run their report once the assessment closes, and they can see their strengths and weaknesses. And from that data, they can build an action plan, which will help them identify areas where they're falling short and steps they might want to take and a timeline to hold them accountable. So from the participant, this is just a quick snapshot of their dashboard, which will show which assessments they're assigned to. They can run their report and they can download the instrument so that they see what they've been evaluated on.
One point I'd like to raise here, and having looked and worked on this process with, with a school that's using the activity, is the automation of it, which I think is, yes, you mentioned students do have to have, some skin in the game, but there's a lot of automation which makes it really efficient for students. And I know you're going to go through the evaluator role, so that the fact that there's so much automation to this really removes, some, glitches of, what I didn't get it, because emails are sent and resent and reminders, and students can keep track of those kinds of things. It's not a guessing game, which I think you've really built into this process, which makes a big difference for both participants and evaluators. So we'll move to the evaluator role.
Yeah, and that's a good point. We haven't put it all on the participants, but they do have to log in and they do have to name their evaluators, and then it's up to them to build their action plan after. But there are the evaluators, as you'll see, that once the evaluator has been listed, there's a process that guides them through it. So if for example, I work with Paul, so perhaps I named him as an evaluator for me on my workplace competencies. Paul will receive an email that says, Christina Perry has asked you to give feedback on her EvaluSkills instrument. Here's the purpose. And it will invite Paul to log in and set up his account. And then perhaps other people that work with Paul have also asked him to complete the evaluation. There's a tab that says My Evaluations, and any pending evaluations are listed there. He'll see my picture, my smiling face asking for feedback, and he can click that and evaluate, and then it'll run through those items one by one. So oral communication might come up, critical thinking might come up, business ethics might come up, and he will read through those criteria and say, in my experience of working with Christina, she's competent here, she's excellent here, she could use some help here. And then he can write in comments that says, in this situation, I've witnessed this, I would suggest, and that will really help me with my personal development. He can save that as a draft or go ahead and complete it. And then if he wants to log in at a later point, he gets another invitation for someone else, he can see what he's already submitted for other people. So they have an account too on the platform.
And again, I think this is useful for maybe a faculty person who has 5, 10, 15, 20 people. They really need to keep track of all of these. So that's an important thing. And that last point, I think, is very important, to review previously submitted evaluations, because any of us who have ever corrected exams know that sometimes the first group we are easier or harder, and then as we move through our exams at the end of the day, we might get harder or easier. It depends on a lot of factors, and it allows the reviewer to look back at their evaluations to ensure that they're being fair at how they're evaluating. I think that's a really nice component of this ability to review what you've previously submitted, so you can maintain some some cohesiveness in the way in which you're evaluating.
Right. Okay, so we were talking about the evaluator going in. They can do this evaluation on their laptop, their desktop, their iPhone if they want. So here, for example, I've clicked evaluate, and the screen comes up. One of these components is does not play favorites. This person treats others fairly and consistently. And then it gives me some examples. So here we're seeing the 1 and 2, which are unsatisfactory behaviors. But I can scroll down and see my 3, 4, and 5. Select the one that corresponds to this participant, and then go to the next item. So it walks you through one by one. If you want to think about it and come back to it, you can skip and come back. But it does give you all of the scaling for each of the assessment items. So once you've finished, say you've gone through the dozen items or so, you can go back and review. If you think, oh, I have a comment that might help this person, you can add it in. Like I said, your scores and your comments that you give will remain anonymous. They will be averaged into that person's report. So if I had 5 evaluators, I won't know how Paul scored me. I'll just see that on the whole, my evaluators rated me a 3.6 on a scale or something like that. And yeah, then the reporting, once I go in and the assessment's closed, they've given me a couple weeks to do this. All my evaluators have given their feedback. I can go in and run my participant report, which will give me the breakdown of my overall scores and then how I rated myself against how the group, my group of evaluators rated me. I'll also have an action plan at the end of my participant report. And then the administrator will have access to a group report, which shows them, for example, if you have 25 students in a capstone, it might show them all. So for the participant report, here is my overall summary of scores. As you can see here on the left, this was a pretty robust evaluation. It had several assessment items there: work ethic, willingness to learn, etc. I have my average evaluator rating in green, and then for all of this, across all the scores, that vertical blue line shows my mean score of a 3.26. This makes it really easy to see where I have strong skills, everything that falls to the right of that, and then where I might have weaknesses, those that are pretty far to the left. So in this example, if we look, business ethics to me is a low mark, which and managing remote and virtual teams, I didn't do very well there, but I did very well in curiosity and in global awareness. So that might suggest I have an open mind and curious, but may have taken some ethical shortcuts. It just gives me a little bit better self-awareness. And then I can also compare as a participant how I scored myself against how my evaluators ranked me, and then how my group as a whole performed. So again, if I'm in a capstone program here, I rated myself a 4 in emotional intelligence. My evaluators rated me a little bit lower. A few of them differed in their opinion. And then my group as a whole averaged a little bit higher. So this could indicate a potential blind spot for me or an area for improvement. At the end of my participant report, I'll have that action plan, which breaks down where I've scored higher than the group or my highest scores, and then also weaknesses where I might want to improve. This is something that the student has on their printed report, but they'll also be able to access it online. If they log into their platform, they can type in and edit. So here, for example, we have the action plan. One of my weaknesses was open-minded. My evaluators scored me that I did not meet expectations being open-minded. So I would think about what actions can I do? What are some things I can do to improve this? When am I going to do it? And who is going to hold me accountable? And this is something I can save in my platform and refer to so that later I can check in and see if I've done those things and if it's resulted in a greater level of performance. Now for the administrator logging into the administrative platform, they can run a group report. So here I'm teaching a capstone course and I want to see how my group as a whole did. I can see how they performed in each of those areas. And then I can also have a breakdown of who deviated significantly from the average score. So for example, let's see, what is this? I gotta move. Business trend awareness here. I can see who my top performers are, who really follow what the trends are, and I can see who my laggards are, who might need some help, and maybe you could pair people up for some tutoring. You could also look at the histogram with the frequency distribution, and this is useful if you see, well, on average, my group is scoring a 3. They're meeting expectations. But if you see wild variations in rankings, that they're getting a lot of 1s and 2s from some evaluators and a lot of 5s from others, that might show that they've skewed their data by including a lot of friends who are just padding those statistics. So you might need to look at the distribution in those cases to see what the data really means. The group report also ranks your group's performance on each of the selected assessment skills from highest to lowest. So here, for example, my group scored very high in accountability, 4.4. That's very high. It's very strong. Valuing diversity, only a 2.8. So that gives me some idea of how my group as a whole is performing on those key competencies we've identified.
Okay, I'm being the taskmaster. We're running a little late in the time.
Okay.
We started a little bit late, but we wanted to make sure that we covered as many of these slides as we could. Thanks. We're going to do a little more tandem here so that we can take a look at the applications, because of both Christina and I are using this service now and integrating this with some of our partner schools. So as Christina mentioned, I'll go back to the beginning of the presentation where we said some of the challenges here, and the applications for undergraduate, graduate, postgraduate programs. But we're also seeing institutions interested in the notion of using this traditional 360 evaluation within the institution itself, meaning faculty and staff. So we have a lot of application across institutions, both on the academic and administrative side. So in conclusion, and I'll let Christina add any more, within this final sort of synthesis of our presentation with soft skills and EvaluSkills, our service here. Obviously, the notion of being flexible and customizable is critical to institutions that want to maybe even add their own test items, their own rubrics. That's certainly possible. I'm actually working with a school that wants to do it in another language. So there's a language, being able to provide us with the translations and rubrics in other languages, or other ways in which you want to look at the soft skills. Obviously, having standardized rubrics is critical to that objectivity and consistency, which we continue to talk about when we're looking at the soft skills side of improving institutions. Obviously, having your own administrative site, you don't need to come to us to do all these reports. We provide a lot of training in making sure that that this runs smoothly. Again, the group reports, having worked in accreditation for many, many years, this is really important to determine where you need to make changes and how to develop not only individuals, but how your academic programs are delivered, so that you're touching on the soft skills within and throughout your academic programs. And also the nice component of being able to have an action plan, participant plan. My suggestion is always to include this if you have good good results on some of these in a student's resume, or here in Europe called CV, and upload. We use what we call a diploma supplement, which you can include this in that, which is a nice sort of portfolio of your activities. And then, of course, the ability to do pre and post test for looking at it in a longitudinal analysis, particularly nice with incoming students and in the undergraduate level, to see how you're doing. So we'll move to questions to see if anyone has anything they'd like to add before we conclude our presentation. I don't see anything coming up. You can just simply raise your hand, or if you'd like to type in a question to either Christina or I, we'll be happy to answer that. I'll wait a few minutes to make sure that I don't cut anybody off in their questions. to
Yeah,
see if we
thanks,
have
Paul.
anything.
I know I wanted to add too that you mentioned the language versions. One of our first pilots of this was actually for an MBA program in Poland. So the assessment items were translated into Polish, and the group completed that, and then did also some one-on-one mentoring after they received their results. So yeah, absolutely, this can be adapted to international audiences as well.
Yeah. So I don't see a whole lot of chats or questions, so I guess we did a great job,
I
Christina, in
think we were
making sure
so clear.
everybody was really clear. So just to conclude, we'll be happy to provide you with information, additional information about EvaluSkills. Here's our general email address, our telephone number. You can check us out on our website, which is PeregrineGlobal.com, and you'll find both Christina and I there. You can reach out to us individually if you have any questions. My friends here in Europe or in Asia, please don't hesitate to contact me. I'm around here to respond to any of your questions and walk you through what we have as a demonstration through our tutorial. So even though we're not able to see you in person, we are looking forward to the day when I can actually have a reason to have business cards and actually hand them to you and share a cup of coffee and talk with you at our booth or at a workshop where we're doing, which we do on a regular basis with all the accreditation agencies. So I don't know if anything you'd like to add to your final remarks, Christina, before
No,
we
I never thought the day would come where I'm yearning for an airport, but I
no.
miss everyone. And like Paul said, reach out to us, that email. I'm not going anywhere, so I'm here to answer your questions if you'd like to chat or set up a video call that we could do amongst ourselves. But thank you very much for joining us this morning, and
Thank
let
you.
us talk to you about this very important issue of soft skills. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And just a reminder, Peregrine has a whole slate of very interesting webinars. Please check out the list of webinars. You probably received a few emails. We're running them on a very regular basis, and this is designed to help you and your journey in quality assurance and improvement at your institution. So again, thank you very much. And I'll say au revoir from Paris, and you say, I don't know in the West how you say goodbye, but I think it's just goodbye.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, everyone, and au revoir, Paul. À bientôt.
A bientôt.
Bye bye.